My contractor took $4,000 for a fence. Then I found an AI photo of my finished yard online. I was standing on my back porch staring at a single, rust-pitted shovel stuck in the mud when the realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. The man I had just handed $4,000 in cash wasn't building my fence, he was digitally stealing my entire house. For 35 years, I worked as a civil engineer. I spent my life calculating load-bearing capacities, analyzing shear strength, and ensuring that the concrete and steel structures holding up our city wouldn't collapse under pressure. I know when something is structurally sound, and I know when something is built on a foundation of lies. I had spent 6 months meticulously saving up my pension checks to build the perfect privacy fence for my backyard at 4421 Crestview Terrace. I didn't want cheap vinyl or rotting pine. I wanted 100 feet of premium western red cedar. I wanted the smell of rich, natural wood and the kind of craftsmanship that outlasts a mortgage. That was why I hired Buck. On paper, or rather, on the Oak Haven community Facebook page, Buck's elite exteriors looked like the gold standard. His page was flooded with glowing reviews. People praised his punctuality, his eye for detail, and his fair pricing. When he pulled up to my driveway for the estimate on a Tuesday afternoon, I should have noticed the red flags. His Ford F-250 was lifted, perfectly polished, and the truck bed didn't have a single scratch on the paint. A contractor with a spotless truck bed is a contractor who doesn't do any heavy lifting. But Buck was a master of the hustle. He hopped out wearing a pair of Oakley sunglasses and a high-vis vest that looked fresh out of the plastic wrapper. He walked the perimeter of my yard, nodding enthusiastically, tapping his clipboard with a pen. "Joseph, I'm looking at this soil, and I'm telling you, we're going to need to dig deep, set the posts in quick-cure concrete, and cap them so the cedar doesn't wick the moisture," he said, staring me dead in the eye with a grin that showed too many teeth. It sounded right. It sounded like the words of a man who cared. When Thursday afternoon rolled around, we finalized the contract on my kitchen island. He told me he needed a $4,000 cash deposit for the lumber. He claimed his supplier offered a massive discount for cash, which he was passing directly to me. I went to the bank, withdrew the heavy stack of $100 bills, and handed them over. "Sunrise start tomorrow, Joe," Buck promised, stuffing the thick envelope into his jacket pocket. "We'll have this perimeter secured before you even pour your second cup of coffee." Friday morning arrived. I woke up at 5 a.m. I brewed a pot of dark roast and sat by the kitchen window, watching the street lamps fade as the sun crept over the horizon. 6 o'clock passed, then 7, then 8. By 9 in the morning, the street was entirely empty. The only sound was the distant hum of a neighbor's lawnmower. I picked up my phone and dialed his number. It rang 4 times before hitting a generic voicemail. I left a polite but firm message. By noon, the sun was baking the empty expanse of my yard. I walked out the back door, the heat rising in my neck. Sitting right in the middle of my freshly mowed grass was a single, battered shovel. He had left it behind during the estimate. I dialed his number again. This time, the call didn't even ring. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service," the automated voice chirped in my ear. My vision went blurry with rage. My chest tightened, a cold knot of dread settling heavily in my stomach. $4,000. Gone. Evaporated into the humid Oak Haven air. I spent the rest of Friday pacing my living room, berating myself for being a fool. A civil engineer scammed by a guy in spotless work boots. Saturday morning dragged in like a storm cloud. My wife, Martha, was sitting at the kitchen table, her reading glasses perched on the bridge of her nose as she scrolled through her iPad. The silence in the house was suffocating, thick with the unsaid reality of our missing savings. Suddenly, she gasped, the sharp intake of breath cutting through the quiet. "Joseph," she whispered, her voice trembling as she pushed the tablet across the oak table. "Look at this." I leaned over. She was on the Buck's Elite Exteriors Facebook page. There was a new post, uploaded just an hour ago. It featured a high-resolution, wildly vibrant photograph of my house. 4421 Crestview Terrace. There was my blue siding, my neatly trimmed rhododendrons, and my vintage charcoal grill sitting on the patio. But enclosing the yard was a breathtaking, masterfully crafted western red cedar fence. It was flawless. The wood glowed with a rich, amber hue. The caption below the photo read, "Another Friday, another masterpiece." 100 feet of premium cedar installed in record time for a thrilled client in Oak Haven. Quality you can see. DM us for a quote. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. I grabbed the iPad, my thumbs pressing hard against the glass as I zoomed in on the image. Something was wrong. The fence looked almost too perfect, the grain of the wood repeating in unnatural, identical patterns. I zoomed in closer on the far left corner. My pulse pounded in my ears. The corner fence post didn't touch the ground. It floated about 2 inches above the grass, and halfway up, the wooden post seamlessly melted into the branch of my neighbor's oak tree. I traced my finger across the screen to the shadows. As a structural engineer, I understand light, geometry, and angles. The sun in the photograph was low on the horizon, clearly positioned for a late evening sunset. The light was hitting the front of my house from the west, but the shadow shadow cast by this magnificent fence was stretching out violently toward the south. He faked it, I hissed, the acid churning in my stomach. Martha, he ran this photo through an AI generator. This isn't just a stolen deposit. He's using our house to scam other people. That's when the real bombshell dropped. I didn't just close the iPad. I marched into my home office, my hands shaking as I booted up my desktop computer. I pulled up the feed from my 4K doorbell and security cameras. I needed to know exactly when he took that photograph. I scrubbed back through the footage to Thursday afternoon, right after I had handed him the cash. The video showed Buck walking out of my front door, but he didn't get into his truck and drive away. He walked to the edge of my driveway, opened a hardshell plastic case, and pulled out a drone. It wasn't a cheap toy drone. It was a heavy, multi-rotor rig equipped with a spinning cylindrical module on the bottom, a LiDAR scanner. I watched the screen in horrified fascination as Buck launched the drone. It hovered aggressively over my roof, sweeping back and forth in a tight, methodical grid pattern. He wasn't just snapping a quick picture for Facebook. He was taking a high-density 3D scan of my entire property. My engineering brain went into overdrive. Why would a 2-bit scam artist need a topographical 3D scan of my house? I opened a new browser tab and started searching. I ran a reverse image search on the AI-generated photo of my newly fenced yard. The search engine spit back a dozen results, none of them from Facebook. They were links to 3 different offshore real estate and short-term rental websites. I clicked the first link. The page loaded, and the breath hitched in my throat. Luxury Oakhaven paradise, fully fenced, private yard, immediate move-in. There was the AI photo. Below it was a listing description, praising the pristine cedar privacy fence, perfect for large dogs and family gatherings. The listing was asking for a $2,500 holding deposit to secure the rental before a physical walkthrough, wiring the money to an untraceable digital wallet. He wasn't a bad contractor. He was a high-tech digital squatter. He was using the AI finished yard to create an illusion of extreme privacy and luxury, preying on desperate renters looking for a pet-friendly home. He had probably already stolen tens of thousands of dollars from innocent people using my address. I felt a cold, calculated calm wash over me. The blind rage vanished, replaced by the precise, methodical focus of a man who builds bridges. I wasn't just going to call the local police precinct and file a report that would get buried in a filing cabinet. I was going to dismantle Buck's elite exteriors down to the studs. I picked up my phone and dialed my brother-in-law, Greg. Greg is a senior producer for the 7 on Your Side investigative segment at our local news station. He thrives on public humiliation and exposing fraudsters. Greg, I said, my voice dangerously steady, I have a story for you, and I have the bait. I spent the next 3 hours explaining the LiDAR, the AI hallucination, and the offshore rental scam. Greg was practically salivating through the phone. We formulated a plan. We needed Buck to come back to the property. We needed him on camera, in the act. I called up my old college buddy, Marcus. Marcus was a retired theater actor who owed me a favor. We set up a burner email address and contacted the rental listing, playing the role of a desperate, wealthy tech worker relocating from the West Coast. Marcus sent an email claiming he had a massive Mastiff dog, needed the fully fenced yard urgently, and was willing to pay a double deposit in cash today, but he absolutely had to see the perimeter of the fence in person to ensure it could hold his dog. The response came back in less than 10 minutes. Buck agreed to meet him at the property on Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Saturday night, I barely slept. I sat in my office with a massive, large-format architectural printer. I took the AI-generated photo of my house and blew it up into a giant, 4-foot-wide poster. I used a thick red Sharpie to circle the floating fence post, the tree branch glitch, and the physically impossible shadows. I rolled the poster up like a blueprint. Sunday morning arrived, crisp and agonizingly slow. By 8:30 a.m., Greg and his cameraman were army crawling through my side gate, hauling a heavy broadcast camera and a boom mic. They tucked themselves behind the dense, 6-foot rhododendron bushes lining my back patio. I stayed inside the house, peering through the slats of the kitchen blinds. My heart was a drum in my chest, beating a frantic rhythm. At exactly 9:55 a.m., a silver rented sedan pulled into my driveway. Not the pristine F-250, a rental. Buck stepped out. He was trying to look like a legitimate property manager. He had swapped the high-vis vest for a cheap polo shirt and was wearing a different baseball cap pulled low over his sunglasses. He had a fake brass key jingling aggressively in his hand. Marcus pulled up a moment later. He stepped out of his car, fully in character, looking anxious and excited. "You must be the property manager," Marcus boomed, shaking Buck's hand. "That's me, call me Steve," Buck lied smoothly, his voice muffled but entirely audible through the wireless mic Marcus was wearing under his collar. "Let me show you the backyard. You're going to love the privacy fence. We just had it installed on Friday. Premium cedar." I gripped the rolled-up poster so hard my knuckles turned white. I moved quietly to the back door, waiting in the shadows of the mudroom. Buck led Marcus around the side of the house, stepping into the complete completely empty, muddy expanse of my backyard. There was no cedar. There was no privacy. There was only my neighbor's chain link fence and the single, rusted shovel still stuck in the dirt. Marcus stopped dead in his tracks, playing the bewildered client perfectly. Steve? Where is the fence? Buck didn't even flinch. His sociopathic confidence was almost terrifying. He pointed a finger at the empty air bordering my lawn. Right. I should have warned you, Buck chuckled, sliding his hands into his pockets. The fence is currently being treated with a proprietary stealth sealant. It's a high-tech UV protector. It goes on thick, and it actually bends the light around the wood while it cures. It's so clear it's practically invisible until it fully sets on Monday morning. But trust me, you can feel the quality. Stealth sealant, Marcus repeated, his voice dripping with perfectly acted skepticism. I couldn't wait any longer. I kicked the back door open. The hinges screamed in protest. I stepped out onto the porch, unfurling the giant, 4-foot-wide poster of his AI hallucination. I held it up like a shield. I'm a civil engineer, Buck, I said, my voice echoing across the silent neighborhood, and I know a structural hallucination when I see one. Buck spun around. The blood drained from his face so fast he looked like a ghost. His eyes darted from me, to Marcus, to the massive poster detailing his digital forgery. He took a step backward, his fake confidence shattering into a million pieces. Joe, Buck stammered, raising his hands defensively. Listen, man, the lumber yard had a supply chain issue. You were just running a LiDAR drone over my roof to list my house on the dark web, Steve? I barked, taking a menacing step down the porch stairs. Tell me, how exactly does the sun cast a shadow north-northeast at sunset? And what kind of stealth sealant makes a fence post fuse into an oak tree? Before Buck could formulate another lie, the rhododendron bushes rustled violently. Greg and his cameraman burst from the foliage, the massive camera hoisted onto the operator's shoulder, the red recording light glowing like a warning beacon. Greg shoved a microphone directly into Buck's face. Buck, or should I call you Steve? Greg Miller, Channel 7 News, Greg announced, his voice booming with journalistic authority. Can you explain to our viewers why you're collecting thousands of dollars in deposits for a property you don't own, using AI-generated photos? Buck panicked. The flight response took over his entire body. He swatted at the microphone, turned on his heel, and sprinted toward the side gate. But he had forgotten his own mess. He took 3 desperate strides across the grass before his foot caught the edge of the rusty shovel he had left behind on Friday. The wooden handle popped up, entirely catching his shin. Buck launched forward, his arms flailing wildly in the air, and face-planted directly into the thick, wet mud of my garden bed. He scrambled to his feet, spitting dirt, but a heavy hand clamped down on his shoulder. 2 uniformed Oak Haven police officers had been waiting in Greg's news van parked down the street. They had walked up the driveway the moment I kicked the back door open. Stay right there, sir, the taller officer commanded, yanking Buck's arms behind his back. The sharp, metallic click of the handcuffs echoed beautifully in the Sunday morning air. Does the stealth sealant work on handcuffs too, Buck? I asked, folding my arms across my chest as I watched him squirm. He didn't answer. He just glared at the mud on his pristine fake leather shoes as they marched him down my driveway. He was arrested on the spot for grand larceny, wire fraud, and criminal impersonation. The police confiscated the drone from the trunk of his rental car, finding a hard drive containing 3D scans of over 40 different homes in our county. 3 days later, the news segment aired. Greg titled it, "The Fence That Wasn't There." It was a masterpiece of television. They played the Ring camera footage of the drone, showed the massive poster I had printed out, and looped the footage of Buck tripping over his own shovel in glorious slow motion. The segment exploded. It didn't just play on local television, it got picked up by national affiliates. My face was suddenly everywhere. People recognized me at the grocery store. My phone didn't stop buzzing with messages from neighbors who had almost hired Buck themselves. I realized I couldn't just sit back and let the 15 minutes of fame fade away. I had a responsibility. I spent the next month using my engineering background to code and launch a scam-proof contractor database specifically for Oak Haven. It required contractors to upload legitimate insurance bonds, state licensing numbers, and verified, physically inspected reviews before they could be listed. It became the definitive resource for our city, effectively starving out the fly-by-night scammers. But the absolute best part of the entire ordeal happened a week after the broadcast. A flatbed truck pulled up to my driveway, rumbling loudly. The owner of a massive, legitimate lumber yard 2 towns over stepped out. He had seen the news segment, admired the fact that I caught a tech scammer using structural geometry, and decided the story was too good to ignore. He and his crew unloaded 100 feet of the most beautiful, premium western red cedar I had ever seen. They didn't just donate the materials, they brought a team of real, hard-working carpenters to install it. They sank the posts deep, poured the quick-cure concrete, and capped the wood perfectly. Now, when I sit on my back porch with my morning coffee, I look look out at a real masterpiece. I can smell the cedar in the sun. I can run my hand along the grain and feel the solid, undeniable reality of a well-built structure. Buck is currently sitting in a county jail cell, waiting for a trial that is going to put him away for a very long time. His digital illusions couldn't save him from the heavy, unbending reality of the law. I got my money back, I got my privacy, and I built a fortress that protects my entire community. Am I the monster for turning a $4,000 mistake into a televised public execution, or did a guy who sells invisible fences get exactly what he deserved?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.